Welcome to GoPowerCat.com's Friday Shoot-Around, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome in here to the Friday Shoot-Around. I am Ryan Gilbert, as always, joined by Clint Stewart. It's been a good week for Kansas State basketball. The Wildcats coming off of back-to-back wins over Colorado and Cincinnati. And also on the recruiting trail, Clint, we can get into this a little bit later. Back-to-back commitments from Ashton McGee and Xavier Wilson. So a lot to get into here today on the film study. As always, we're sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. But Clint, man, these last couple of games maybe weren't the prettiest victories that you've ever seen in your life. But as they say, Clint, a win is a win, right?
Hey, 2-0 the last two games. And, protecting the home court against Colorado, I thought was really big, especially being that Colorado is one of the bottom of the Big 12 schools. And so as far as in basketball. And so, it was big for us to not allow them to come into our place and sneak a win, as they haven't won on the road yet. And we made sure that stayed intact. And then, obviously against Cincinnati, we'd like to score more points, but it was nice to see our defense, hold them to, I'm sure it had to be close to season lows. I mean, as far as points, I'd have to go back and look, but it was nice getting Coleman back in the mix, and you can tell he's not 100%, but just what he can bring, scoring the basketball. He had a huge block kind of late in the second half as well. So nice having him back on the floor. And any way you can win, you got to, just got to figure it out. Doesn't matter how you do it. Doesn't matter what the score ends up being. It's just, can you land on the winning side? And as I say that, I'm sitting here and I don't have K-State on, so I feel like I'm losing today because I don't have a K-State shirt on. So I'm glad the Wildcats got the win to pick me up.
I assume you had a K-State shirt on Sunday instead of Bramwich Coliseum. You were in attendance, Clint. I'm sure that was a lot of fun for you. Was there anything that you saw maybe watching in person that you got a different perspective on versus just watching on TV like you usually are?
Well, I thought the guys, it was also our best game playing without Coleman that we played. I thought Doug was really aggressive. It didn't mean that he made, a ton of shots, but he definitely was aggressive, which is what we need him to be. Not only scoring for himself, but also for others. And then I thought, we took care of the ball decently against Colorado. And then multiple guys stepped up and made some big time shots, which was nice. And then David Gasson, we can talk about him all day the last two games, but he's so active, and he just makes everything kind of fit together. Kind of the glue guy. And then, like I said, we don't run many plays for him. I think there's maybe one set that we run for him where it's a cross screen that Hazen sets for him, and then he gets a look underneath the basket. But other than that, he's pick and roll, finding the short roll opportunities, the open space, hitting a little floaters, getting the dump offs, and you can definitely see the connection between Doug McDaniel and David Gasson.
Yeah, Gasson's been getting a lot of recognition as of late, but it still just doesn't feel like it's enough. I mean, he is such an important piece to this team, and it's hard to imagine where the Wildcats would be without him. How important has Gasson been? Obviously, these last couple of games, Gasson's been great, but here in this entire season, man, just the importance of Gasson can't be talked about enough.
Well, he's the epitome of what coaches want players to be. Like, he's the ultimate coach's player, because he's going to do whatever he has to do to try to win. He's going to play as hard as he has to play. He's going to try to defend. He's going to try to rebound. He's not going to complain. You don't even have to run plays for him. As a guy like that, I say, hey, coach, can I get some more extra opportunities? And looks like he doesn't care. He just wants to win. And you're seeing that on the floor. And he's on the ground diving for loose balls. So I'm sure Coach Tang and the staff, as they look at, if you're building a basketball player that you want to come play for Kansas State, Gasson has a lot of those qualities, which is really nice.
Yeah, building the foundation for your program moving forward. A couple of commitments, Ashton McGee and Xavier Wilson, like we said, we'll touch on them later on. But, your drum tang's been outspoken about it this year. You want David Gassons in your program. You want guys that are you want multiple guys that have had multiple years of experience in your program on the court at the same time. David Gasson's been just the best example of that. Moving forward, hopefully K-State can get, some of these high school pieces to be like that as well. Clint, another guy that I want to touch on, though, Coleman Hawkins. You're looking at a guy that could easily call it a collegiate career, hang up the jersey or hang up the sneakers, right, and move on to your focus on the professional level. But, Drum Tang said that he was in the gym, in the rehab facility, getting better with his body 24/7. And he was able to return against Cincinnati. I know you mentioned he didn't Coleman Hawkins didn't play particularly well in that game, but you're looking at a competitor. You're looking at a guy that loves basketball and wanted to be back on the court.
Yeah, and he had 9 and 8. He had 6 turnovers, had a couple bad shots. What you kind of expect coming back from not playing in the last few games, probably limited practice, and obviously not 100%. And so I think for a guy like him who came into this season coming off of the NBA draft combine type of stuff, and obviously has NBA aspirations. Here we are late in the season, and multiple losses where you say, okay, might be hard for us to make the NCAA tournament, unless we have a big run in the Big 12 tournament. A guy like that can just say, Coach, I probably need to shut it down, make sure my body's ready to go for the next opportunity. And you see that he's trying to push through it and trying to do whatever he can do to help the team win. And so it speaks to his character. It speaks to, what he's about. Especially a guy that's taken early on a lot of criticism from K-State fans and from those around the nation. I think it really just shows that, hey, he's K-State through and through, and he wants to make sure that, no matter how this goes out, he wants to try to be on the floor to help the team win. And so that right there speaks volumes, and that's what K-State is all about.
Coleman had a couple of, let's call it like it is, ugly turnovers, careless turnovers, top to bottom. The entire team just had, a number of just uncharacteristic plays. What does it say about the toughness, though, of this team, the resiliency of this team to find a way to win a game and come out on top when it's not pretty and things maybe aren't always going your way?
Yeah, I can remember there was one pass kind of late in the game. Coleman kind of spun and threw it straight out of bounds to Coach Tang. Coach Tang caught it and acted like he was going to shoot it, and so kind of funny. But that's some of the rust, that he has to get off. But I think from our offensive standpoint, we didn't score a lot of points, but you could definitely see we tried to flow some things through Coleman. Like when we're playing well, he posts up out of the post and he creates double teams and things of that nature. And and we try to do some of that in the game against Cincinnati. But I think overall, I thought our team, just the grit and the grind, to hold Cincinnati to 49 points. We didn't shoot it well, but we made sure that they didn't shoot it well either. And so, and that's on the road, that's really, really hard to do in the Big 12. And so it just shows that, our guys are still connected. They're still trying to do whatever they can do to win. It doesn't mean that's going to be the outcome every single game, but, they haven't given up on the season just because, we went on a run, then we lost some, and now it's like, oh, we might not be able to make the NCAA tournament. They're still trying to do whatever they have to do to make the NCAA tournament and get some wins under the belt as we head into Big 12 play. So it was two key wins for us. Now we have Iowa State at home on senior night, and they're not playing particularly well right now. They've lost 3 out of their last 4. So if we can beat them at home, and then you kind of see what happens in the Big 12 tournament.
K-State's going to need Coleman Hawkins, of course, moving forward. Is Coleman, I'm sure he's not 100%. I'm not sure if he'll ever be 100% ever again in a K-State uniform, but how much of the rest do you think was knocked off out in Cincinnati, and how much better, I guess, quote unquote, can Coleman Hawkins be moving forward as he returns from that injury?
Well, a lot of that, when you have an injury, a lot of it is just being confident in your movements again, right? And so for him, being able to get out there and just test it, right, and see hopefully, I haven't heard anything. Hopefully it came out okay and it's not any worse than what it was going in. But that's really big for your confidence as a player because, you don't fully know until you actually just get out there and try it, and then you say, okay, all right, it's a little sore, but it's nothing more than what it's already been, and I can continue to play through this. So I think what you'll see from him and the game against Iowa State, hopefully is even just more confidence in his movements, more confidence and him driving the basketball, him defensively, sliding laterally, which means he'll be an even better basketball player in the next game is what we hope. So that confidence is really big.
I know you touched on the defense, all that stuff a little bit earlier, but you hold Colorado to 56, Cincinnati to 49, man. That is a sign of a strong defensive effort, regardless of everything else, maybe negatively going wrong. The defense was there in both of these games for Kansas State.
It was, and really our defensive rebounding, I thought, was key in both of these games. I think we gave up 9 offensive rebounds to Colorado and 10 to Cincinnati, and I think that's been kind of an Achilles heel at point in times. And so, if you look at the rebounding, we were basically even. I think we lost each game by one, which is a huge advantage for us to be right there even or come out on the winning side of the rebounding battle. I think that was really key, especially when you look at neither team shot it really well, being Cincinnati and Colorado. We could have given up quite a bit of offensive rebounds and second chance opportunities. And you're only, your first shot defense can be great. But if you can't figure out a way to get the rebound and then limit them to getting a second shot, then it makes the game really, really tough. And so it was really nice to see that our first shot defense was good and we were able to get some defensive rebounds.
That Utah trip, the rebounding numbers were abysmal. Obviously, you mentioned it, right? Is it just as simple as maybe boxing out and giving just some better effort, some better hustle, some better energy to get to those balls and get to your man to grab those rebounds?
Yeah, it's all just being locked in. It's all guys just having a sense of urgency when the shot comes off and making sure that they are making contact. And again, basketball. I think when we're young, we're taught, hey, shot goes up, you got to contest, hit them, turn and block out, and you don't necessarily have to do that every single time, but you do have to check and see if your man's coming, right? Is he coming in to try to rebound this basketball or not? So every time that shot goes up, you do have to look back and say, is he trying to come crash the glass, or is he getting back on defense? And as long as you check, then you can make the determination of what do you need to do, right? So I check first, and if he's trying to crash, now I got to hit him and make sure I block out and turn and go get it. I check, and he's not coming. Cool. Now I can try to go help and just fly in there and try to grab it, maybe help the big, as if I'm a guard, help the bigs try to block out their big underneath the goal or whatever it might be. But if you're not checking every single time the shot goes up, then you're not doing your job. And I think that's what sometimes we fall into, just watching the ball and not checking to see if our man is coming to get the offensive rebound. But these last two games, we've done a really good job of that.
Before we go talk about Iowa State and those recruits, or commitments now, I should say, I want to ask you about maybe the pulse of this locker room. And for a team that had lost, it was 4 in a row. Again, I mentioned Coleman Hawkins could have easily given up on the season. Same thing could be said top to bottom for the entire roster. For a team to come out and win these back-to-back games, especially this one at Cincinnati on the road, you are truly looking at a team, a group, a coaching staff, a group of players that have not given up on the year.
Yeah, and that's big. I think there's a lot of teams at this point in the season, you're late in the season. We're talking about Coleman Hawkins not being 100%. A lot of guys at this point in time in the season aren't 100%. Like your body's breaking down a little bit. You're a little bit sore, different spots. You might have, a twisted ankle that no one even knows about, but you know about, and then the training staff and coaches might know about, so a lot of times at this point in time in the season, if the season hasn't went like you have expected it to, guys can just kind of shut down, just kind of either one or two things, start kind of playing for themselves, and I'm just going to play for myself and, and be selfish, or just kind of like shut down, like, hey, it doesn't really matter anymore. Right. And I don't think you've seen that with this group of K-State guys, and obviously the coaching staff, they're not going to give up on any game or any season, but I think it's really big to see the players have bought into, the next game, man. Just focus on the next game, give everything you have, try to execute to the best of your ability, and see if we can get the win in the next game. And now that next game is Iowa State.
K-State dominated Cyclones up in Ames earlier this year. I'm not sure if I'm expecting that to happen again. You never know. But what can Kansas State take from that game and to give itself its best chance to win here on Saturday?
Yeah, well, I think we're going to have to defend, and Iowa State is a really good defensive team as well. I think they hold opponents to about 67 points per game. They score about 80. So these last two games for us, it's been kind of a defensive battle. Like, it hasn't been about, offense and offense scoring 80 points. It's been, hey, defense holding the opponent on both sides. And, I think Cincinnati played some pretty good defense. So did Colorado. And so I think this could come down to a defensive battle, especially, at home, and us trying to slow the game down. We're going to have to take care of the basketball. I think that's going to be the biggest key for us against Iowa State, because they do try to turn up some of the pressure, one-on-one pressure, and then try to get in the passing lanes a little bit. I think they forced opponents into like 15 turnovers a game. And so we don't want to get anywhere near that number. If we can limit our turnovers, we can make this a defensive battle and get the game in the 50s, the 60s, keep it in that low range. I think we'll have a chance to come out on the winning side.
Kansas State is going to have to hit its open shots now, whether that's 27 3-pointers attempted or 18 Right. Kansas State's been, I think it's the last 7 games. I'd have to double check. I wrote about this, but the 3-point shooting numbers haven't been maybe up to par. And so everything that you mentioned, by all means, but Brendan Hasen was 0 from 3-point range against Cincinnati. You've got to hit your shots here against Iowa State.
Yeah, those opportunities that come, in the midst of the game, guys that are shooters have to be ready to shoot, and they got to jump up and knock them down, and that's what we expect them to do. And they got to continue to have the confidence to do so. Hasen didn't make one in the last game. He can't come out and be gun shy in the next game when he has open opportunities. He has to be ready to step up and shoot the shot and then look for it to go in. And just staying confident in their abilities. And we're going to always have to. I'll say this: when you make shots, it makes the game so much easier. On both sides of the floor. One, your defensive, it's just the way it works. Defensive intensity turns up because you make some shots, but also just the game becomes easier because, offense becomes easier when you make shots. And so, we make shots, it'll look good, but if they don't go in, what can't happen is we can't just rely on, our offense and say, hey, if we don't make shots, now I'm going to jog back down on defense. I'm going to give up the back door. I'm not going to block out. Like, we have to do all the little detailed things, no matter if we make or miss shots. It does, like, the little details are what's going to come down to.
Before we get into maybe the ramifications of what happens after the Iowa State game here, K-State's won 2 games heading into this one. I know this team obviously treats each game like it's its own season, but you've won 2 in a row, man. How much can these past 2 games help K-State keep it riding, keep it going into this game on Saturday against Iowa State?
Yeah, well, I think you just learn from these last 2 and what we did well, mentioned around rebounding. Obviously David Gasson's playing really well. I think, multiple guys have kind of stepped up in certain periods of the game. So that's been really good. So you hope that we can just carry that momentum and those things that we did really well, limiting our turnovers, into this Iowa State game. And I know the guys are watching film, not only on Iowa State, but also, these last 2 games. And what do we do well? And if we can focus on that, it's going to be senior night. So there's going to be some, emotions, going. And a guy like David Gasson, right, going to have some emotions, coach going to have some emotions as well. But those can be good for us, and so hopefully we can play into those emotions and get out to a fast start, because we're amped up and ready to play from the very beginning, and try to hit Iowa State early, and then maintain that lead throughout the game.
Yeah, you got to turn those into positives. Cincinnati senior night on Wednesday, I don't think the energy was up to par for the Bearcats. So yeah, like you said, starting early, that's definitely going to be a key for a team that's maybe been punched a time or two from the opening tip. The best way to set the tone for a win is coming out and playing with good energy and throwing that first punch. But if you win this one against Iowa State, Clint, how much, it goes without saying that that's going to be big for the momentum heading into Kansas City. But let alone the fact that you might be playing on a Wednesday instead of a Tuesday and getting that bye. But the momentum, man, how important can it be to beat Iowa State, who is a very good team, to get this team's confidence where it needs to be heading into Kansas City?
Yeah, I think it is huge. And you just mentioned around, playing on the Wednesday instead of the Tuesday. The less games you have to play to win the Big 12 tournament, the better. Because, it's hard to win 5 games in a row. It's very tough, tough environment. 4 games are like it. And so it also puts you in a position to, your body starts breaking down a little bit more, each game. And so the less games, going into the Big 12 tournament, you got to win. And then for us, we're at a position in a situation where we have to win the Big 12 tournament, or at least make it to the championship game, to make the NCAA tournament most likely. And so, this game against Iowa State can give us some really good momentum heading in, give us that first round bye, most likely as well. And then let our guys, someone like Coleman Hawkins, even just that extra day rest, for his injury could be big, and what he can do in the next game. And so, it's a big game for us, and you always want to protect home court. You go in, you win 3 in a row heading into the Big 12 tournament. You feel really good about where we're at. I think we have shown that we can play and beat anybody in the Big 12 outside of maybe Houston, and who knows, in the Big 12 championship game, you play Houston, who knows what, in Kansas City, maybe we can get it, and so I think it just shows that, hey, this momentum is really big for us, and we're right there. We just got to put it all together at the right time.
Yeah, I mentioned on our boards 2021 against Baylor, who was the eventual national champion in the Big 12 tournament. K-State gave the Bears a run for their money, almost pulled off a huge upset. So it's not the NCAA tournament, but it's still March. Anything can happen in March. So I get it. Houston's a damn good team, but I think if you want to win it all, you've got to have the mindset of saying, hey, we've got to go 4-0, 5-0, whatever it may be, regardless of the opponent. They're nameless gray faces. Just go out and win. Clint, what's the message to a team who obviously wants to go run the table in Kansas City, but also you're a team, right? You're a coaching staff that views each game like it's its own season. How do you not get your guys peeking ahead to the next game or what might be next?
Well, I think the message is, you have to win one to win four, and so if you don't win one, you can't win four. And for us, it's there's nothing to lose, right? I mean, like we're at a point in our season where we shouldn't leave the floor without saying we gave everything we had on the floor, because tomorrow's not promised, and the NCAA tournament obviously is not promised. And so I think that's the message. Yeah, we want to win four. Yeah, we want to win five. But if we can't win one, 4 or 5 doesn't matter. And so we have to make sure that each and every game we're leaving everything out there on the floor, because that is our only chance of winning 4 or 5. Is taking care of the first one with everything that we have, and then we move on to the next one with everything that we have to go do it.
Switching gears, man. Recruiting. K-State's obviously got a couple of commitments, like we've said. Maybe Ashton was the first on Wednesday to commit. I know you've watched his film a little bit. What sticks out just about his game? I know he's a freak athlete. That goes without saying.
Yeah, he is very, very athletic, can play above the rim. You look at his body type, he's already kind of college made. I mean, he looks strong. So I'm sure Coach Phil will enjoy that. Yeah, he's already ready for the weight room and things of that nature. But he's a taller wing, I think about 6'7" or so. He's a straight line driver. There's not a lot of, playing with the basketball. He's going to catch it, pump fake, drive it, get to the rim. Really likes the mid range as well. And because he's taller, he can shoot over smaller guards or smaller wing players. And so I think it'll be a really good asset. Obviously, as all, freshmen coming in, you got to get used to the environment, the atmosphere. It's a different ball game, especially now because, you're coming in and you're playing against guys that might be 24, 25 years old because of the extra years and everything else now with college athletics. And so, but I do think he's ready from his body type and body standpoint. He's already ready for college basketball. So I'm excited to see what he can bring to the team.
Xavier Wilson, a guy who's out of this Kansas City area. I'm not sure if we've got any familiarity with him or not, but what sticks out just about his game?
Yeah, and a guard that sees the floor pretty well. I think he also likes to get to the pull-up. Really good floater game, and so when he gets into the paint, he doesn't always try to get all the way to the rim, which I think is really important for a guard of his size, and especially at the college level. I think what guards find out, and I found this out as well, and I'm 6'4", is at that next level, it's very tough to score at the rim. I mean, Tony Parker for the San Antonio Spurs did it as one of the best small guards, ever as far as scoring in the paint. But it's very tough. I mean, you really have to be able to be crafty, and get some floaters. If you watch Doug McDaniel and a lot of shots he takes are like quick runners, kind of flip one-handers, because, there's 6'7", 6'8", 7 foot, guys that are athletic down there, around the rim. And so it's really hard to score. But what I see with Xavier Wilson is he has a really good floater game. And so I think that will translate very well for him at the college level. And then he also likes to get to the mid range and the pull up and kind of play off the bounce, and so we're looking forward to seeing him growing in that.
It's nice to see the staff going after. Obviously, David Castillo last year was great, but he was the lone signee of that class. And now here you got two. You're trying to build a foundation for your program. These are, in 3-4 years from now, right? If you can have David at the 1, right, and then you got Xavier and Ashton in the lineup, right, when they've been in the practice facility together for years, and they know each other, right? Continuity is just such a big part of college basketball in today's day and age. How much of a nice, just foundational piece can both of these guys be?
Well, I think, what you hope is, one, they stay, right, and stay at Kansas State for their entirety of their career, whether that's to end up going playing professionally afterwards or leaving early for that or whatever that might be. But I think the biggest thing is, they kind of grow up together. And there's something to be said about, guys and the familiarity and just the continuity, as you mentioned, and like playing multiple years together, and you really think back to, the Barry Brown years, Barry Brown and Dean Wade, and and those guys played multiple years together. They came in as freshmen and stuck through it, and you kind of saw the Elite Eight run, things they were able to do, right? And so, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And Coach Tang obviously has to make sure that those guys, one, they come in and there's a big expectation on what they can do over the years that they're with Kansas State, right? Like they got to be able to perform well and play well. But then, Coach Tang be able to keep them at Kansas State and those guys just growing up together and really setting a strong foundation. And then you obviously bring in more guys around them and guys from the, higher or lower classes, however you want to look at it, and as well into the mix. And, but that's big in today's age because it's far and few in between now, with the portal and everything going NIL. I mean, guys just jump around, like that. What's that? The song "Jump Around"? Jump around. I mean, that's what I feel like, now. And so, hope that we can keep these guys long term.
Yeah, I know Henry Walker mentioned on the show with us here a couple months ago now. Time's flying, man. We're already into March, but yeah, he mentioned a guy like Jacob Poland, who I know you played with, and maybe wasn't. I know in his mind he was always that guy, but he got better as the years went on, and went on to be a K-State legend and a K-State great. So K-State staff, right, assuming that they can develop and grow these players, right? The more time you have with a player in your locker room, man, the better.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing too is, as a coach, when you bring players in, is making sure that you prioritize that development with those guys, right? And a lot of times, even as coaches, we can get kind of distracted with the next shiny thing, and sometimes it's not the next shiny thing. It's, can I develop what I have into the shiny thing, And so, what I hope to see too is, we're committed to these guys' development and committed to giving them opportunities. And that doesn't mean that, hey, they're playing bad, we need to play. I'm like, no, they obviously have to hold up their side of the bargain and they got to play well, but we have to be committed to developing them, to helping them play well on the floor. And that's what we hope to see long term. So then you kind of see the fruits of that development, and all the time spent into making sure that those guys come in and play well and end up being what they want to be, but also what we expect them to be, long term as well.
A couple of commitments, a couple of wins. It's been a good week for K-State basketball, Clint. Hopefully they can keep it going on Saturday. And I guess we probably won't talk until after the Big 12 tournament. So any final closing thoughts just on the event in Kansas City?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being at a few games. And I say a few, so that means we got to win, right? No one, just one. So hopefully we can play well. Like I said, I mean, our guys are primed for this opportunity, and we can beat anybody if we play well. So go Cats, let's do it.
Yeah, thank you as always, Clint. I'm not sure when we'll be back here next with another shoot around, but regardless, plenty of coverage is coming your way right here on Go Power Cat. No, not only on this YouTube channel, but over on gopowercat.com as well. You can get your first month for just $1. But Clint, appreciate your time, man. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you for watching the Friday Shoot Around, sponsored by Riverbank Brewing. This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production.